Live NFL trivia every Wednesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge for a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. Many people today think that there are way too many bowls in the world, and that instead of bowl games being a reward for a great season, they're more like participation trophies. I mean, back in the day, you used to need to have a great record in order to go bowling, and even that wasn't necessarily enough. Now, for the record, I'm in the camp of more free football in December is always better than the alternative of not having football. However, whatever your thoughts on bowl games are, at the very least, there is a very strict process that bowls have to go through if they want to invite a bad team that would otherwise not be bowl eligible. Bowls can't just invite teams that don't have 6 wins and have a losing record willy-nilly. They can only do it under a very specific set of circumstances, where there have to be no eligible teams that you're leaving out, and where the team must have 5 wins and meet APR requirements. In other words, the Armed Forces Bowl can't just invite a 5-win Texas A&M team this year, and the Hawaii Bowl can't just invite a 3-win Hawaii team this year. Unless there are more bowl-eligible teams than there are bowl games, the drama comes with where teams are going to play, and not with who's actually going to be playing in a bowl game. Which is what makes this story all the more bizarre. Because the team you've been watching this whole time is the 1985 USC Trojans. If you know anything about USC from that 1985 season, you know that they ended the year going bowling. However, what was crazy about it is that at the time that they got the invite, they were not even bowl eligible. And I'm not talking about a situation like certain teams have, like Hawaii and Army, where there's a contingency in there that states that the team has an automatic spot in that bowl game no matter what if they hit the bowl eligibility criteria. I'm talking about a situation where a bowl game invited USC to play in their game and passed up on other teams who were better and deserved it more, even though USC still could have finished the year below 500. It's a truly bizarre situation, and we're going to take a deep dive into that today. Because this is the story behind what might just be, in the over 125-year history of the USC Trojans, the strangest bowl appearance and the craziest bowl invite in program history. Before I talk about the actual invite in question, we need some context to understand how USC was doing, and what led them to be in a spot to get this invite in the first place. The year is 1985, and the expectations for USC were sky high after an incredible 1984 season, where they went 9-3, went 7-1 in Pac-10 play, won the Pac-10, and then defeated Ohio State by a final score of 20-17 in the Rose Bowl, winning the granddaddy of them all for the first time since 1979. When you come off of a Rose Bowl win and end the year ranked inside the top 10 of the AP poll, it's safe to say that people expect you to be able to carry that momentum into the following season, especially if you've got some key pieces returning, like running back Fred Crutcher, who was second in the conference in 1984 with 1,155 rushing yards. However, even though USC was expected to do a lot, as they were ranked as the number 6 team in the nation heading into the season, and jumped all the way up to number 3 following their opening day victory on the road against a number 11 ranked Illinois team, it didn't quite work out that way. Don't get me wrong, by no means was USC a really bad team, as you're able to see from these clips. It's not as though the bottom completely fell out from under them. However, they were one of the most disappointing teams relative to expectations during that season. They had a lot of really uncharacteristic losses that you never would have expected from them at the start of the year. When they went on the road against Arizona State, they got shut out and lost 24-0. When they played a very bad Notre Dame team that would finish the season 5-6 and without a bowl appearance, they got annihilated and lost 37-3, making it USC's worst loss in a series since all the way back in 1966. And they played a California team that finished the season dead last in the conference, going 2-7. One of those wins? You guessed it, a 14-6 victory against USC. Through 9 games, the Trojans were 4-5, and were in serious danger of not even making it to a bowl game, which I don't think anyone, not even the most skeptical Trojan fan saw coming. The only way they would even have a fighting chance at a bowl game was if they somehow defeated a number 8 ranked UCLA team in their final home game of the season. But no way that was going to happen, right? No way was USC, with how poor they've been for most of the season, going to defeat a UCLA team that had won 6 straight games and was coming off of a dominant 41-0 shutout victory the week before against Oregon State. But somehow, that's exactly what happened, because when the final whistle sounded, USC was victorious, having defeated UCLA by a final score of 17-13, topping a top 10 ranked team in stunning fashion. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of surviving footage of this game, but it was huge for USC, and that's putting it lightly. The game didn't mean anything in the bigger picture to UCLA. They clinched the Pac-10 and were going to play in the Rose Bowl, and even if they won that game against USC, seeing as they lost to an unranked Washington team and tied an unranked Tennessee team before that, they never had a shot at winning the national championship in any publication. But for USC, not only was this a win against arguably their biggest rival, and not only was this a bright spot in what had been a very dark season, but this win got them to 500. Just when their bowl hopes were dead in the water, all of a sudden, they had an outside shot at making it with a 5-5 record. And following their win against a top 10 UCLA team, the Aloha Bowl came calling. The Aloha Bowl was looking for an opponent in the western part of the country to play the Alabama Crimson Tide in their bowl game. At first, they were going for Texas, but that quickly fell apart once Aloha Bowl organizers realized that if the Longhorns couldn't play in the Cotton Bowl, that they would have an invitation to the Bluebonnet Bowl over in Houston. Then, they tried going after UCLA and Arizona State, but obviously, neither of those teams would go to the game, because they got invited to significantly more prestigious bowl games, with UCLA going to the Rose Bowl and Arizona State going to the Holiday Bowl. It was tough for this bowl game to get the teams that were high atop their wish list, since the Aloha Bowl only offered $400,000 to each team. Not only is that one of the lowest totals of the entire bowl slate, but when you factor in the fact that the teams have to travel to Hawaii, which is not cheap by any means, you might come out in the red if you play in this game. Every other Pac-10 team ahead of USC already had a bowl invite in front of them, so the Aloha Bowl saw an opportunity after USC's stunning win against UCLA. Sure, there are going to be some really good teams that are going to be sitting at home that might deserve this more. West Virginia, for instance, was 7-3-1 and didn't get a bowl invite that year. And there were a bunch of other teams with 6 to 8 wins that were left out, while a 5-win USC team was getting this invite. But the Aloha Bowl figured that this was an opportunity that they could not pass up. USC had a large fan base in Hawaii, they would sell tickets, and they had a prestige factor that no other available team had. Aloha Bowl organizers were happy, with Kevin Mulligan, the assistant executive director of the bowl game, saying on this, "Records really don't mean a whole lot. Anything can happen in a bowl game. It's a great matchup. You couldn't ask for 2 schools with more tradition than USC and Alabama." USC Athletic Director Mike McGee was happy, saying, "When afforded the opportunity for our seniors to finish their career with a trip to a bowl and a possible victory over Alabama, as well as the advantages to our recruiting, this is an invitation we accept with pleasure." And USC head coach Ted Tollner was happy, saying, "We're very excited to have the opportunity to play a prestigious team like Alabama in a quality bowl like the Aloha Bowl. The bowl is run in a first-class fashion, and it's in a great setting. That gives us a chance to finish our season on a very high, positive note." So yeah, this was controversial on some levels, but this doesn't seem like a huge deal letting a 5-5 USC team in. There was just one small problem that we haven't talked about. Oh yeah, USC's season wasn't finished yet, because the Trojans still had 1 game left on their schedule, as they were going to end their regular season on November 30th with a game in Japan against the Oregon Ducks. Oddly enough, this is not the first time I've done a college football video on a game being played in Japan, as if you want to learn more about that, click the card in the upper right corner. But their final game was against an Oregon team that had won 3 of their last 4 games, and much like USC, was 5-5. In other words, this was not a guaranteed victory by any means. Long story short, if USC lost this game, and seeing as they lost to freaking Cal earlier, there was no reason why they couldn't lose this one, then the Trojans would be playing in the Aloha Bowl with a 5-6 record. They would be going bowling with a losing record. And the Aloha Bowl invite wasn't contingent on USC beating Oregon in this game. It was set in stone. Nowadays, this might not seem like a huge deal. We've seen plenty of teams playing bowl games today with a 5-7 or a 6-7 record, or some really bizarre records in 2020 when COVID screwed everything up. But remember, those teams didn't take the places of other bowl-eligible teams like USC was potentially doing. This was almost unprecedented. Since the NCAA split into Division 1A and Division 1AA, it had literally never happened before, where a team with a losing record made it to a bowl. The last time it happened, you had to go all the way back to 1970, when William & Mary, at 5-6, made it to the Tangerine Bowl. However, that doesn't really count, since they won their conference, so they got an automatic bid that way. The last time an at-large made it to a bowl game with a losing record was nearly a quarter century before, when SMU, despite being 4-6, going 2-5 in the Southwest Conference, and finishing second to last in the conference, somehow got an invite to the Sun Bowl. And that was the only time, since the end of the Korean War, that an at-large got an invite with a losing record. In other words, Aloha Bowl organizers were completely banking on the fact that USC would win their game against Oregon, so as to make this a complete non-story and to save themselves the embarrassment. Mulligan was extremely hopeful that he wouldn't want to have a mulligan, pun completely intended, saying, "We think they'll beat Oregon. We're hopeful. We don't expect to have a losing team here. We believe in USC." If Alabama people are looking at USC as just another 5-5 team, they're making a mistake. Still, it is an extremely risky strategy, where even if it works, you make people question the legitimacy of your bowl. And if it doesn't work, you're remembered as an embarrassment, and every team that had a winning record that had to miss out on a bowl game is furious, and rightfully so. The amazing thing to me is that there was an extremely easy contingency fix if you wanted a West Coast team in your game that would have made a lot of sense and would have made everyone happy. USC was 5-5, Oregon was 5-5. Just announce that the Mirage Bowl would be a play-in game to the Aloha Bowl, and that you'll take the winner of that game. I don't know why that would have been too hard, instead of potentially setting yourself up for this disaster of a situation. But this was the route, as stupid and as crazy as it might have seemed, that the Aloha Bowl organizers wanted to go in. Fortunately for the sake of everyone involved, the crisis was averted, as USC wound up defeating Oregon by a final score of 20-6, finishing the regular season with a 6-5 record. By no means was that great, and by no means was this season a success considering the expectations that just about everyone had for USC at the start of the season. However, 6-5 and a winning record is better than 5-6 and a losing record, and it saved the Aloha Bowl a ton of embarrassment. Aloha Bowl organizers didn't exactly get a good game out of USC, as the Crimson Tide won convincingly, taking it by a final score of 24-3. But at least USC had a winning record entering that game, which is all that mattered in the eyes of the Aloha Bowl organizers. As of this video, USC has made it to 56 bowl games, ending over half a century's worth of seasons with an extra game at the end of it. But of all of their bowl appearances, none are going to be as weird and as bizarre as this one, where they got asked to play in a game that they might not have even been eligible for. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, and subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.